Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Robbins, and welcome to LPLE from Dialogue FM. We're the podcast that lets you practice listening in English. We speak English slowly and clearly so that you can follow along and understand native English speakers more easily. I'm excited to help you improve your English listening skill, as well as help you learn new vocabulary, grammar, and idioms commonly heard in conversations among native English speakers. If you want to practice listening in English, then we invite you to join our conversation. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Jesse.
A moment ago, we were talking about a friend of yours. And this friend has a 2-year-old son. There was something special about this young boy. Can you describe for the audience this particular young boy's behavior?
Yes, it was something quite beautiful. I was not there, but I saw a video of it. The little boy is the child of my friend who is Asian, and his wife who is an American. And I'm not sure what the mother's religion is. I believe she may come from a Catholic family. The father is Buddhist, and they go to a Buddhist temple in the Seattle area every week. But the little boy has not been taught anything specific about Buddhism, as far as I know. And they visited Southeast Asia about a year ago, and they visited, I believe, in Thailand, I may be mistaken, a long hall of particularly beautiful statues of the Buddha, a long line of them. And the little boy, completely independently, started to run along the line, bowing with his hands together in prayer at every single Buddha. When he got to the end of the line, he got down on his knees and bowed to the whole long row of Buddhas. It was amazing, and it made me think that we come into this world with certain kinds of understanding that our parents cannot explain. It made me think also that the old ideas about how to raise children have to go away. Certainly, when I was a child, the idea was children are an empty, blank canvas, and you have to teach them everything. And I think most people understand now that that's not true. But I thought this example of this little tiny boy was the most vivid illustration of that fact that I could imagine.
The part about raising children is something I would like to talk to you about today. When you told me this story, I became interested in it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's fascinating that a young boy, only 2 years old, would understand how to show respect like that. Number two, I was interested in your story because I will have my own son in 2 months. I will be a dad.
Wow.
Yeah. So as I think about young kids like this, I have to think about, how am I going to be a father? Now, what you said is something I would love to talk to you about and with the audience, which is rethinking how we become parents and how we teach our children. So you mentioned that in your parents' generation, children had to be taught knowledge directly from their parents. It was the parents' responsibility to teach the children all that they know. Now, naturally, I feel as though we have moved beyond that to some extent.
Yes.
But maybe not. What I think we forget is that children, you hear the saying, children's brains are like a sponge.
Yes.
Right? Now, for the audience, a sponge, which is spelled S-P-O-N-G-E, spelling on the fly, I tell you, it's always scary. A sponge is something you use, a cleaning tool you typically use in the kitchen or in the bathroom. You use it to clean dishes or clean the sink. A sponge absorbs, takes in, and holds water, and you can use that to clean. Well, children's brains are similar. They absorb so much information everywhere, not just from their parents, but from TV, from their books, from their friends, from their teachers, from their friends' friends, from everywhere. Kids are constantly learning. So I realize, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, I feel as though as a parent, it's my job to help my son process and analyze the information he's receiving every minute of the day.
I don't know whether that would be considered, how can I say this? Trying to force him into a particular into a particular way of observing. Recently, I have coincidentally heard some talks on child rearing from my students, because I have some young parents among my students. And also just, I don't know, on the radio or something, the idea that the ways we have been taught, even you who are much younger than I am, you were probably taught in ways somewhat similar to the way I was taught. More and more people are saying in some ways you need to let the child lead, because he knows more than we think he does, and he knows who he is. And a parent being too strongly, a parent interfering too strongly can distort or close down the child's natural ways of understanding. The idea is that we came here knowing a lot, and sometimes when we force ourselves into certain cultural modes or social modes, we forget the best parts of ourselves.
That's a good point, and I'd like to clarify that I have to be careful to not tell the child what to think, but to help them figure out how to think. those are two different things, right?
Yes, very much, yes.
So when I say help the child analyze information, what I want my son to be is curious. I want to help nurture, foster, encourage my child to have a sense of curiosity. I know I'm going to regret this later when I say this, but I want my son to ask lots of questions. Now,
good luck.
Right, exactly. Because you hear horror stories of a child always asking, why? Well, why? Right now, I'm excited to answer those questions. However, I'm sure that there will come a time when I'm too tired. Nevertheless, I want to encourage and maybe even help teach my son how to be curious and how to analyze without leading him to my answer. Right? I want my child to create their own answer to a question. I'll maybe have a different answer. And then we can have a very mature and well-reasoned discussion about it. Now, that did not happen with me and my parents. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think that's a cultural issue, a social issue, and a generational issue.
I agree with all of those. And to some extent, a personality issue. I certainly heard a lot of discussion in my house among my parents' friends, differing views and so on. And the people might yell at each other, but they were good friends the next day. You know, they got upset, but they were good friends and nothing was damaged. The really strong thing that I believe might have been even stronger in my childhood, not only my childhood, but my generation, was there was such a thing as being wrong. There being mistakes. You have to do it a certain way. And I think the idea of helping somebody think and explain why and not have there be a specific right or wrong answer. Well, for a math problem, probably yes, but there not be a right and wrong or good and bad. I think that's something that I would hope is diminishing, and it sounds like your approach is going to encourage the understanding of both sides.
I hope. Now, remember, we don't have a child officially yet. This is our plan. I hope we can stick to this plan. I know my wife agrees. My wife and I are a mixture of luck and hard work. You know, we understand how lucky we are to have received certain opportunities in life. Mm-hmm. We also worked hard to make the most out of those opportunities. So that's why my wife is a doctor, and that's why I went to graduate school. So the key thing that makes us successful in what we do is our curiosity. We have to be curious. As a doctor, my wife has to constantly be asking questions.
Yes.
And learning. Same thing for me. in business development, market research, building my own company, I constantly have to ask the question, why? Why do we do this? Why did we think about it that way? Why did the customer have a good experience or bad experience? And correct, different than a math problem, in business and in medicine, sometimes there's multiple solutions to one problem.
Mm-hmm.
Or multiple problems could have the same solution.
Right.
So,
vice versa.
Mm-hmm. So no matter what, I think because my wife and I are naturally curious people, we have a better chance of teaching that skill, that characteristic to our child.
Yes, and his encouraging him instead of giving him a short answer or saying, because I said so, or just discouraging questions. I'm sure all children at some point ask why just to see how far they can push their parents. But growing up asking why and getting some really careful, attentive answers, which I did, made a huge difference. I've known people who didn't have that, and I think they have a little less, I was about to say courage. I don't mean courage exactly. I mean a feeling of freedom about imagining, about pushing a little beyond your comfort zone to learn or to see something new. That's what I meant by courage, that if you have always been encouraged to be curious, you think it's a good thing, and you're more willing to take a risk, I think.
Mm-hmm. When we have our son, chances are our son is going to want to draw.
No doubt.
On the wall. Right? So what I might do is install in his room a special thin layer of whiteboard.
Good idea.
Along the walls. So that, number one, I don't have to worry about painting the room. I don't want to do that. And two, I want my son to feel comfortable drawing on a wall, and I can tell him, only draw on these walls. Mm-hmm. You can draw on the wall, but only these walls.
I wonder how that, I'm sure there'll be one or two mistakes.
Yeah, I'm sure. Unless we keep the markers in the room.
Maybe.
Now, the next step is when he starts asking why, I actually might encourage him to draw a diagram on the wall so that he can visualize, he can see how his questions and my answers connect to each other.
Mm-hmm. This sounds great. How creative. I love this.
Well, it's actually something we do as business consultants.
That's true. You have the board there with the markers, don't you?
Well,
yeah.
Furthermore, as consultants, especially for people in process improvement and operations management, one of the tools that they use is called the 5 whys analysis. So there's an accident that happens. The consultant comes in and asks, why did this happen? Okay, it was because of A. Well, why did A happen? Because of B. Well, why did B happen? Because of C. And if you keep asking those questions, you ultimately arrive at the main problem. And the main problem may be very different from the original idea about why that was a problem. So similarly, I'd like to do that with my son. So when he asks why, then, okay, if you're going to ask why, I want you to draw it on the whiteboard so that we together can figure out, what are you really wanting to know? Yeah. So we'll see. I mean,
See
again,
what happens. And what age you can start with
exactly.
is doing that.
As soon as he can write and ask why. It could, I don't know what age that is, but as soon as that young man can write
Or draw. Anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, as you can imagine, I'm excited. Exactly.
I'm excited too.
Yeah. My friends are excited. I'm excited. It's just, this feels very, very right timing. My wife and I are stable in our careers, and yeah, just 2 more months. 2 more months away. May 12th.
Wow.
Yeah. So you'll hear a lot more baby stories. Audience listening to LPLE, you will hear a lot more stories about our baby in the near future. Thank you for listening to this episode of LPLE. Let's practice listening in English from Dialogue FM. Subscribe to LPLE on iTunes to hear the latest episodes, or listen to past episodes on our website, dialogue.fm. That's dialog.fm. If you have questions or comments about English, or if you would like for us to use a word, grammar, or idiom in our conversation so you can learn how to use it correctly, we would love to hear from you on Twitter at dialogue.fm or Facebook at facebook.com/dialoguefm.